Okay, welcome guys. So, I don't know if you could tell, but this video is going to be on the Magnum 350. It's, let's see. So the history, for me at least, is in the late 90s, I got an aquarium. I think I got like a 10-gallon aquarium when I was younger. I was in high school, actually it was probably junior high. With my own money and, kind of begged my mom to take, drive me to the fish store and blah, blah, blah. And she wasn't into it, but I just did it. And then I think I got maybe one more size bigger. And I don't remember what tank that was, or it could have just transitioned from like the 10-gallon. And I'm like, screw this. And I think in high school, when I had my own car, I got a 75-gallon. And I was like, this is the best. I built the stand, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, and then, I was using the under gravel filter. I think I had a power head. I may have had a hang-on back, like an Aqua. And they were really cheap and really affordable. And I just something happened where I was like, this is not good enough, And I'm in the pet store. And I'm just walking around the side aisles, and I didn't even know to look, around too much. And the next thing I know, I see this thing. And I think the box I got was literally like half. I think it was like just the canister, right? And I think this is before this box was even made, and I think even before this box was made, but I don't know that for sure. I just remember it being like and it was like $300. It was like something expensive, right? And the guy tried to talk to me. I was like, oh, you don't need that. That's overkill, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no. I was like, something about this something about it just made sense to me. Seeing this micron, I go, that's a filter, right? The other stuff I'm using, and this goes way, there wasn't the whole conversation around bacteria. I think that was just a given or a happenstance of the under gravel filter. I don't think people, it wasn't too mainstream of a conversation to talk about, your tank cycling and do you have like a digester? Are you like, is there a canister just pumping water, through? And, are you thinking about it from that scale with like, all the under gravel stuff, right? And it was just like, my tank didn't seem as clean as it could have been, completely missing the whole bacteria thing. And I bought this and I ran it and I woke up the next morning and I thought my tank drained onto the ground, except that the fish were still flying around because it was so crystal clear that I literally thought the tank was empty. I didn't think there was water in there, right? And so then I was just like, and then I was just like, oh my God, this is the best. Anyway, so that all started with this. And I'm sure there were other great filters out there at that time, but I never saw them. The advertising and the internet didn't exist when I got this, at least at the same scale it does today. So this was it. This was what was available. I have no recollection of anything competing with this. And so in my mind, this is the original OG. I know there was a smaller version of this. It was like a little bit of a cheesier 220, I think it was. But yeah, so it was like, there was a 220 model. And I don't know if this recommends a 220, but anyway. Yeah, so it started off with this. It's 350 gallons per hour. It's up to 100 tank, up to 100 gallon, no bypass. It's got it's the first time I heard of micron water polishing. This goes back in the day. It says chemical, but that's because of the carbon. And this is kind of before the whole biologic, right? And then so what happened is, then the biologic, I think, started taking off. And then so their answer to the biologic, and I'm not saying that it didn't. People weren't having conversation around it. It just wasn't entirely mainstream. And so then they invented the bio wheel, which is this whole thing. Right now they're actually talking about the the biological filtration, which is also chemical filtration too. It's just an ongoing chemical filtration, right? And so this was a big deal. And this is what that bio wheel looks like. And it actually comes, this couch. This is actually brand new and clean. I'm not exactly sure why it's that color, but anyway, this gets colonized, and sometimes pretty heavily. And you close it so there's no light, so you don't get algae, because you can get algae growing on it, right? So you close it, and then you can adjust the flow, and you can get this thing spinning, or you can have it slow, and it's getting aerated, right? Which is why I think it's out of the tank. And so this just becomes, this is like the technology out of like a waste treatment facility, right? Where they aerate it through the thing, they expose it to air, and they increase the surface area, right? Which is the same concept behind the micron filter. So in my mind, this is what, I always imagine when someone talks about a filter. I don't want to rip the box. This is what I think of when I think of a filter. Is this micron cartridge, right? Where, you have this huge surface area, right? Which kind of dwarfs, even modern filters today. Like, the 207 comes with, roughly 30, less than 30 inches of surface space for polishing. And I'm almost positive this is dramatically more than that surface area. And it's on the micron scale, and it's kind of a guarantee, like, if there's any bypass through the filter or any pore sizes that are not at the micron scale, with bypass around the filter or something like that, or even through the filter, you're filtering, but this is a physical barrier from one side to the other. And in my mind, that's what a filter is. This will literally crush itself down rather than let bypass happen, right? And in my mind, that's what a filter is supposed to be. It's just guaranteeing that what's on this side cannot be on this side, right? And so in that sense, I think this was like a true filter. And then they do get clogged. If you're running a lot of sediment, like if you're running a lot of that fine volcanic particulate stuff, and it's in the water column, this will get relatively clogged up. But if your tank is not disturbed and all of that fine particulate stuff has already, made its way through the water column and is settled and is no longer being stirred up, then you can throw these in and they'll last for a really long time. As long as you're not kicking up all that fine, super fine sediment on a regular basis, this will actually last long. And then you can always clean it, which it's not always easy to get the embedded stuff out per se, but you can, clean it, reverse flow and just clean it. You can bleach it and then rinse it, and they're basically reusable indefinitely. And so that was really nice to have this quality filter. But then this was always meant to be a carbon, they call it a carbon container. And it does say other media, but they're thinking of like, they're thinking of stuff like this. But actually, you can stuff this with filter floss. And it becomes quite, an amazing filter in its own right, because there's a tremendous amount of surface area in here. You don't get that even from a good old, 407. You can't pack the same amount of filter floss. Well, or close to it. You probably could pack close to the same amount of filter floss in here as you can in the 407, you know, for your finer filter. But look at all the, this is a 360, you know, from all directions. So this will actually last, like you'll pack this up quick. I mean, you know, this, you'll be able to filter from all different directions on this. And I think the volume that you get in here might be double what you get out of a 407. But not only that, because the water enters from the top through here, this deflector deflects it. Because this water enters from here on the outside of the filter, ultimately finding its way into the center, and then up and out this tube, you can actually utilize this whole canister. And just think about that. You know, I would say that this is at least 6 inches, maybe 6.5 inches or so. And at 350 gallons with 0 bypass, and I mean, this thing chugs, right? I'm running filter floss in that one now. It's coming out of the silver pipe there, and it's a good flow. You know, it's not slowing down. The 207 doesn't even, I mean, it's basically trickling compared to that. So I'm running the filter floss now. I never packed the outside, and that thing just hums along, you know. I think it is, let's see how many watts. Sorry, I know you probably can't see. Oops. 35 watts. Oh, yeah, 35 watts, 0.65 amp. So a gallon a watt. The 407 says it does 28 watts at 383 gallons, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think so. I think it tapers off. I think I think eventually it, slows down, and I don't think it keeps up with that range. While this literally will crush that filter down on itself, except for the tube that you stick in there, and it doesn't want to slow down. So yes, you're burning more watts, but I do think you're getting a beast of a filter. And so yeah, this is the old school goat, you know. You can't buy it anymore. It basically doesn't exist. Every now and then one comes up on eBay, but I bought 3 of them, and out of the 3, 2 were usable, you know, completely usable, or between the 3 of them I was able to get 2 of them usable. Maybe the 3rd one's usable. The canister had a little iffiness, you know, like here, I don't even know if this was the one, but here this is missing the clip, and I actually have, you know, some spare clips kicking around here. But I basically went online and sucked up the last of the last of these filters. I scored like 2 brand new impellers at a pretty heavy price. I scored probably the last 2, well, definitely the last 2 I'm gonna get in this state, once I drive to another state or get a friend to drive to another state. These are gone. They don't make them. And I'm almost positive I'm the last person to get one of these, unless you have a mom and pop shop. So this is basically an extinct filter. And I know what you guys are gonna say, you know, good because it's outdated. And in some ways, yes, but in a lot of ways that are important and that really do matter, I would say no. I would say not at all. Between the nostalgia and the ability to run one of these, and I know you can figure out a way to rig up a water purifier and run it through, and pump it through and get your own. But I just think part of the nostalgia of having it in a actual aquarium, instead of making your own, which I'm gonna do. I'm not knocking it. I'm actually gonna do that, and being able to run, figure out a way to kind of hot rod some of the parts and get this thing to still function. I still think that this thing is very much relevant and a bit of a collector item for some of those old school guys that remember doing it or remember having fun with this back in the day. And if you want, you can pause it and you can read the box, geek out on the box. This is pretty clever. So in the return tube, you just branch off. You're able to branch off the return and siphon some of that water to use for the bio wheel. And it's got a few drawbacks, like I guess there is the potential for there to be a little bit of a leak because some of these connections are above and outside the tank. There's actually like little gaskets here, there's 2 gaskets here, and there's another gasket at the end there, and I guess there's always the potential that those O-rings could go bad, and because they're outside the tank, there's an O-ring goes in here, and here's a clip that locks it in. But because that O-ring is technically outside the tank, it could spring a leak, and you might not notice it for a couple days if it's just dripping. And so I think things like that might have been the death blow. That, and people figured out, more designs came out, and Marineland, I can't say that Marineland actually has put out a direct competitor to what this is. They have, you've all seen the Emperor Penguin with the stem here, and they built in the micron filter here, but it's more efficient with the electricity. But I don't think anybody's really come up with a direct competitor to this canister. These quick connects are cool. There's a tiny bit of water that leaks, but it's just in between the little bit of piping, a ½ inch of water. Each pipe drips out when you disconnect. But those connectors were pretty cool for their time. This is actually really good. It's really fine mesh. That was kind of important at the time too. Very small fish would never make it in. Very small shrimp would never make it in. So that was kind of nice. Yeah, I just think it had a lot. It had a lot going on when they first came up with it. Apparently they sold it overseas. This is an American company. When I bought it, I don't think they had a website. I'm almost positive they didn't have a website. And it really did clean it up like that. I remember trying to figure out what the carbon was like, and all the carbon's bullshit, you know. I was like, oh geez. You know, that's like, you just get that mesh and you get that carbon. It's not the best. You're not going to do a lot of polishing or filtering necessarily with that, you know. It took me a while to figure all that stuff out. I don't think I even knew as a kid to stuff that thing with filter floss. I don't even know if that was a thing back then. Like, you know, everybody knows that now, right? And you do see some people hot rodding the canister. They fill it with rock, or, you know, they'll drop in there one of these, or they'll even, I saw one guy was really clever, and I thought that was really clever. He just took a piece of PVC pipe and he figured out how to cut it at the exact height of this, right? Because this does come with some gaskets, right? And you can order these. These are some things you could still get. You could still get these. You could still get these. And so you can kind of, here's one here, and there's one on the top. It goes on the top of the lid right here. And then there's a, you know, you got your O-ring there. And it only lets you line it up one way because it's got a tab that helps you line it up, and you got to fill it with water. But you can hot rod these things. You can fill them up with different media. And then these are, you know, it's pretty old school. You know, I think this is kind of where the new technology sort of comes into play. Because, you know, what would happen is these would leak. And I'm not saying it very common at all, but, you know, that's what would happen is, for whatever reason, there'd be a bad seal, or, you know, you didn't get it right. Not that you'd have to be in here very often. I mean, I remember going months without being inside these things. But anyway, yeah, the seals would go bad, and then, you know, you'd have a puddle on the floor. And it wouldn't be crazy, but if you had wood floors or carpets, you know, that'd be kind of messed up, right? So, my goal is, you know, I've been running that one. I'm not really that worried about it. You know, then they gave you these like rubber bands that you would just slide over the connector. These actually have the spin-on connectors, but here you'd have to, you know, either, I remember the one I got, I think it was just pressure fit. I don't think I got these. You know, you just slid them on, so you had to be careful that you didn't twist it. So things like that, I think, were what ultimately changed this filter. But yeah, let's dive into the box and just, I don't know what I put in here, but so you got the good hose. I remember the one I got, I think only came with this much hose. I think these, you got more hose with. You definitely got more hose with that. Oh, and this one came with the vac. You could like, I think there was a connector that you just stuck in somewhere. You were able to adapt this, and you could tie in your vac, and you could use the suction and just fill up that filter floss with whatever you sucked up, and you could have like a power vac, right? And then the gravel will settle in the tube. So it was pretty cool. You know, this was a big deal when it came out. But can't really do an unboxing because there's nothing really to unbox, but just wanted to show you guys, do a little reminiscing on the Magnum 350. Thanks for hanging out. Oh, if you're looking for things like this, I could give you a little lead on where maybe you could still get the very last of the last of the last. You'd literally be the last person. If it was there, you'd be the last person in the state picking these up. I will say, mom and pop aquarium stores that don't get a tremendous amount of business, that are kind of stuck in the past, maybe you could dig one of these up. That's one lead. Your local shop. Put a comment in. I'll respond to your comment if you want to know where you could probably still scoop one of these up. I got these 4 or 5 days ago, and I had some lady mail me one of these, and I just remember I was up a little bit late, just going like, oh, I hope it's real, I hope it's not a scam, and blah blah blah. But I was able to get, yeah, I got this just today, and I got these like less than a week ago. So that's why I'm making this video, because I finally feel like I got, between a box of these, 2 of those, that, I got the O-rings, you know, there's not much left that I'm worried about that I can't get or don't already have, because I want to probably just run one of these just purely out of nostalgia, for at least another, I don't even know, maybe 10 years before I grow out of it, I guess. But maybe I never grow out of it. It just brings back too much of the being a kid with my first aquarium and just enjoying the hell out of it. So that's pretty much why. Just doing a little reminiscing. All right, thanks for watching, guys.